on this computer. There we go. Hey, so it is Monday afternoon on October 10th at 2 o'clock, and we're here for our content lesson, which we're going to take a look at. And also, since it's Indigenous Peoples Day, I thought I would read this kind of cool book about Cheyenne again, which I actually have recorded. So I'm going to play you the recording of me reading it. Okay. It's a little bit about American history, or it might even be Canadian history, because they had pretty much the same history with the Native American groups, which is interesting. So I don't know if you know this, but historically, when the European settlers started spreading into the Indian lands, there was a lot of problems, right? So the white settlers brought diseases, and then they tried to take the land, and they tried to move they did move the Native Americans off the land, and we treated the Native Americans pretty badly. One of the things that somebody had the brilliant idea of was that a way to help Indian children would be to take them away from their families and force them to behave like European people. So they literally went into the villages, took the children away from the parents, put them in schools, and they had good intentions, maybe, of helping the children. But of course, taking children from their families isn't really a very good idea, is it? And so these schools are historically known for their cruelty and they cut the Indians' hair, they made them act like Europeans, they told them they couldn't speak their language. So the things you hear in the story really, truly did happen. It's a sad time. The Canadian government just recently announced to the Native people a big apology by the whole government. Saying okay. If you miss your book club, remember that I see in the chat somebody missed their book club. Remember that you can always go onto your calendar and find your shared doc. Some kids bookmarked it. But if you look on here on today, so today's the 10th, you can see the 1B group is on here for today. The 3A, the 4A, and the 5A are on for tomorrow. And the 2Bs are on for when they're next going to meet on Wednesday. If you click on that, it's got your document there, and your document will show you, if I click on that, it's going to show you what you need to do. So that's why we have these shared documents, is so you can remember what to do. So the boys group, looks like Javier already went on and entered some information. Eli and David and Luis and Christian need to go on and enter some information on the Bermuda Triangle on this doc. So you just click, and then you can type on there whatever information you have. If you missed your group, go find your shared Google Doc, and then you can take a look at that. For the calendar today, on the 10th, if you were to click on today, you'd see that we don't really have anything due for language arts today. I mean, for content today. So you can see we have the lesson 103 from woodlands to plain, and start work on 103's chart. If you go to that lesson, it's a kind of a neat lesson. I actually really liked it. I was reading through it and thought it was pretty interesting. So it's nice that it's exactly at the same time that we're kind of celebrating Indigenous Peoples Day, because this whole chapter is about the first people who lived on this land. So here's from woodlands to plains, and it talks about the Iroquois people and the Iroquois villages. You're going to learn about different geographic regions of North America. You're going to identify cultural aspects of Native American tribes. That's things like their religion, their dances, their art, the way they celebrated. You're going to compare cultural aspects of Native American tribes in North America, and recognize that different tribes lived in certain ways according to what the land had. So if your land had things for like rivers, then you would learn how to use canoes. But if your land didn't have anything like that, then you probably wouldn't use canoes. So that's what that was for. We have 7 pages of this unit. And like I said, it's not due today, but as you flip through the unit, you're going to realize there's quite a bit in here. So it talks a little bit about the different regions of North America. So here's North America. It includes Canada up here, this purple part, and kind of the line between the US and Canada is more like right here. So part of the Great Plains goes up into Canada. We have the Great Basin, the desert southwest, the eastern woodlands, and the plateau. And then the Pacific Northwest is this coastal area, this green area. That's where we live. We live along the coastal area. And then Mesoamerica is down here in Central America. Let's see. Native Americans were spread throughout the continent. They lived in different environments. I wonder how the environment affected their culture. What do you think? And you get to look at all these different groups of Native Americans, and you get to learn about all the different groups that are out there. And then you get to compare them, which is kind of cool. So on page 3, and this is the lesson you're supposed to be reading today, talks about the tribes of the Eastern Woodlands. And it shows some pictures of that area. Talks about the natural resources that were there, and talks about the different tribes. Then there's the tribes of the Great Plains. So this is the other area of the US, the one that's kind of flat. And you can see it was big and open with buffalo. Had some rivers, but it was much more open, not as many rivers. So you're going to want to remember this. Here's this big plains area. Here's the East Coast. Here's the Rocky Mountains. And then here's over here the West. It talks about 3 tribes that you get to investigate: the Blackfoot, the Crow, and the Pawnee tribes. And then you compare the culture here on this page. So there's a lot of comparison information here, which if you notice this Venn diagram, you could take this information that's right on here and you could transfer it to your chart that you have to make that compares the Eastern Woodlands to the Great Plains. They kind of gave you a big hint here, didn't they? And then they talk a little bit about it. They talk about a scrapbook. When you were finished, add it to your notebook. And then they go on to what did I learn? A summary of the lesson. Look at these houses that they lived in, pretty different from what you see. Sometimes everybody thinks that Native Americans all lived in teepees, but that just isn't true. They lived in different houses according to what they could build with. And here's a little quiz. And then on page 7, it says, what's my assignment? So this is going to be due tomorrow, which the reason I'm showing you the assignment first is that you really need to have the assignment open while you're reading. So it says, print the From Woodlands to Plains, read the instructions, complete the chart, answer the questions, and submit it. So before you read this chapter, you might want to open this up. And as you're reading about the Eastern Woodlands and the shelter and the clothing, you could take notes on this. Remember, in order to type on this, you're going to need to download it up here. That'll put it on your computer. And then you can open it up from your computer and you can edit it in the format that comes up on your computer a lot easier. Because at least for me, I can't edit it until I save it as a PDF. Okay, I'm going to stop my share for a minute and just see if there are any questions about the assignment that's due tomorrow. All right, so you can kind of have a choice right now. Well, I guess not really. I'm going to actually play this read aloud of this book, Cheyenne Again. It's me reading it. And when it's done, then I'm going to open up breakout rooms if you want to. And if you wanted to do this chapter with a friend, I think that would be a really good idea. At 2:30, which is only in 14 minutes, I'm going to move all the boys who are in the boys group, the 1B Reading Warriors, Christian, Javier, Eli, David, and Luis, into one room, and we'll do our book club. Okay? Do I have any questions before I start playing the book? I don't see any. Speak now. Okay. I'm going to share my screen and play the book. It's a good book. Hi, today's read aloud is called Cheyenne Again. It's also by Eve Bunting. And as I read, I'd like you to listen like a writer and see what you can notice that the author did, what choices the author made in her writing to really bring the story to life like a movie. Now, this one, you're going to also have to use your inference because it's a historic fiction, which means it's set in the past. And you're going to have to think about what you know about the times when Native Americans were living in the United States in great numbers, sort of before people took over their lands or during that time. Cheyenne Again by Eve Bunting, illustrated by Irving Toddy. Again, I'm not going to show you all the pictures because I'd like you to imagine the scenery and the setting from the description that Eve Bunting gives us. Of course, when someone writes a book with pictures, they don't always give us the whole description. So see what you can see or hear like a movie and what you can't. One day he comes, the man who counts. Nice hook, huh? Who's he? And says, a boy, age 10, he has to go. This part of the writing where they put it in quotation marks and they say exactly the words that someone spoke is called dialogue. And I've mentioned to many of you that I'd love to see some dialogue in your story. It really brings it to life when you can hear what people say. And you don't want to put in like everything everybody says, because then that's too much. You have to kind of pick and choose the parts that tell the story. And when he comes again, he has with him the tall policeman in his white man's clothes, the one called Talking Man. He wears the hat and spurs, the gleaming silver badge that mark his work. Why would they take a child? What do you know about the treatment of Native Americans in the past? What clues do you have from the text and the pictures? What can you infer? How does the family look about losing their son? Do they seem happy about it? He's shaking the man's hand. The man on the horse, you might notice some things about him. And you just start to ask yourself these questions like, what's going on? What do I know about Native Americans? Why would they be taking a child? What do you infer or guess? Run fast, my mother tells me. Hide. Again, what is this telling us about a mother? Why would a mother say run and hide? Go ahead, answer. Why would a mother say that? Do you think your mother would tell you to run and hide? Let's see what the father says. But no, my father says, young bull must leave. Now is the white man's world. He needs to learn the white man's ways. The corn is drying out. There will be food in this place they call school. Young bull must go. Why does it matter that there's food at the school? What can you infer from that? Maybe you said you thought the mother didn't want him to go because she loved him so much she didn't want to lose her child. But the father sees that there aren't really great options for Native Americans back in those days because the white man was taking over all the land and the future was going to be knowing some things like English. So he was just being practical. The fact that there was food at the school, I mean, to me, that makes me think, and maybe you already guessed this, that they didn't have enough food to eat. I think that they put the Indians on reservations where they couldn't grow enough food, the Native Americans. And they were used to living in certain ways and they wouldn't let them live like that. And so they walked me to the train, the man who counts and Taking Man. You will speak English, says Taking Man. It will be better so. He shines his shining badge. I do not want to be like him. Interesting. That's showing us a little inner thought. This is the sleeping room, they tell me at the school. So bare a place, the beds in rows, no huddle of my brothers warm around, no smell of smoke, no robe spread on the ground. I will be lonely here. She has a very quiet voice. They take away my buckskins and my shirt, the deerskin moccasins my mother made. They cut my braids, give me a uniform of scratchy wool, the color of an ashen sky with buttons to the neck. No more Cheyenne, they say. You have lost nothing of value. You will be like us. And look at the clues you can have. Look at this little boy's face. Does he look very happy? Why would they be changing these children so much? I learned geography, arithmetic, and writing in the English tongue, the history of their United States. I look, but in the book, I cannot see the victory of Greasy Grass, where General Custer and his men attacked our brave Cheyenne and Sioux. It does not tell how we defeated them and counted coup and left the dead asleep beside the river there. My people speak of this with so much pride, the book leaves it unsaid. What is the author saying about the history taught at this school? One of the things we want to always be asking is, who wrote this and why did they write it? And what is their opinion? Because you're going to find a lot of things written that you agree with and a lot of things written that maybe you don't agree with or don't even believe. And one of the things you have to be is you have to be careful about the things you read and evaluating them to see if it's something that you should trust, a source you should trust. I think in this case, the author obviously has read about history and feels that history only shows the story from one side, from the white men who wrote the history side, and it doesn't really tell the story from the Native American side so often. I think in school we're doing a better job now of telling both sides of the story, and and asking ourselves, who does the story of history represent? Who wrote it? And whose stories are not represented? Attend your lessons. Do not sit and dream, the teacher says. You want to be a dumb Indian all your life? I'm sorry, but that's just rude. I toss my head. There's a lot of prejudice. Ugh. He tosses his head. Can you see him doing that? Defiant. Don't think he's liking the school. The bugle calls us to dinner and to work. There's carpentry, so we who lived in teepees can repair the wooden buildings where we sleep and shed our tears. We drill like soldiers and we march to keep us out of mischief, so they say. Boy, it doesn't sound like a very happy school. Maybe some of you think school's like that. I hope not. We march in boots that hurt our feet, so used to softness. Go to church, learn of the white man's God and of his love. We never speak Cheyenne or talk of the Great Spirit, the one who raised us in this land. The Indian in us must disappear, they say. It must be tamed. What do you think about that? At night, I hear the train, I hear the rain, and cry for home. One time, the time of the cold moon, I run away. Building tension, right? We're feeling a little tense, a little worried about him. The snow is deep. Oh, we're feeling more worried. I have no horse, no food to take with me. The tension is rising. I think we're getting close to the heart of the story. Let's see if the action slows way down. I only have the stone my mother gave me once, a stone that wears the scar of wind and rain and still is strong. I hold it fast to give me strength. A blizzard roars across the plain and catches me, so I can run no more. He's not very far from the school, is he? The trackers find me there and bring me back. The school will pay $5 cash for any runaway. They lock a ball and chain around my ankle. I don't know if you've ever heard grown-ups joke about the old ball and chain. Some people, men will say that their wives are a ball and chain, and they're kind of joking, but this is where the joke came from, is that they used to do this to people to keep them from running. We must have discipline, they say. Do you think schools have too much discipline still? What's your opinion? There is one teacher here I like. Our world is changing fast, she says. We all must change. And if you look at this teacher, what do you think about her? To me, she looks like she might be Native American herself. I think you will be glad someday of what you've learned, though it was hard. She gives me salve, which is, well, ask yourself, what is salve? What does that word mean? Let's see in the sentence. She gives me salve to soothe the place the chain has rubbed. And look at the clues of his ankle. What do you think salve is? I'm looking up here. Did you say maybe some lotion or some medicine? Good guess. Never forget that you are Indian inside. Don't let us take your memories. I draw on paper that is lined, torn from my ledger book, across the page. Two warriors ride on painted ponies. One wears a bonnet with full tail. His yellow leggings have bright green fringe. His breechcloths red. The other has a shield with yellow bands. I saw them once like this against a Cheyenne sky. Do you ever doodle drawings from your imagination? Nobody can take that from you, can they? The lines across the page are thin and straight as fencing. I snip the wire and thrust through, and in my mind, the warriors and I ride side by side across the golden plain, Cheyenne again. Did he really escape? Or what do you think they mean there where he snipped the wires? Did you guess that maybe they're just saying that he sort of goes into his imagination? Afterward, in the late 1880s, there were 25 off-reservation Indian boarding schools across the United States. Indian children were often forced to attend these schools, even against the wishes of their parents. The first school to be established was Carlisle in Pennsylvania under the leadership of Captain Richard Henry Pratt. Its motto was "From savagery into civilization," and its goal was to separate Indian children from their backgrounds and cultures and make them more like white people. Among other school boarding schools was Chamawa in Oregon. Can you believe this happened in our state? Chillicothe in Oklahoma, Genoa in Nebraska, Haskell in Kansas, they all had the same goals. Boarding schools for Native American children still exist, but they're now more sensitive to the young people's needs and encourage them to treasure the skills and take pride in their heritage. Why do you think it's important to learn about history from multiple perspectives? Cheyenne again. If this book made you curious about that boarding school, you could look it up. I'll bet there's a website to read about Chemawa. So it's Chemawa in Oregon, Chemawa Boarding School. All right, that's it for today, kids. I hope you enjoyed reading. Okay.
Another one.
What's that?
I also know another one.
Another boarding school that had Native
No,
American.
like another type of book.
What other type of book?
Like the one we just read.
Something about Native Americans? What's the name of that book, Liam?
It was called I Am Not a Number.
I'm Not a Number? Oh, how interesting.
Not
Did they give the child a number instead of a name?
Yeah.
Oh, I've heard of that book too.
Yeah. It sounds like a good one. So friends, today and every day when you read a book, you want to read it kind of as a writer as well as a reader. You can learn from books, you can learn about writing, you can learn about history. And then you also want to always ask yourself, who wrote this book? Why did they write the book? And what are they trying to teach me? So, kind of an interesting thing. Today, I told you that you should be working on your social studies lesson 1.03, starting to read through that chapter and fill out the chart that will be due tomorrow, 1.03. I want my boys to stay on because it's time for their breakout room. I'm going to set up breakout rooms. If you want to go with a partner to a breakout room, stay on here and I'll let you do that. Okay. And then boys, I'm going to transfer you all into the same breakout room and we'll do our meeting. So I'm going to set up breakout rooms. Anybody who wants to be with a partner to work on their social studies can stay. Let me know if you would like a partner. Okay. Otherwise, I'm going to open breakout rooms now.
Can I go?
You can go. If you're all done with your social studies, go ahead and go.